Hi friends, it's Linda Curry here. I just wanted to show you a quick video of me making some of my raw chocolate. It's so delicious and so high in antioxidants. So here it is. The ingredients I use, one of the most important ingredients is this cacao butter. Now, cacao powder, cacao butter is what makes up the cocoa bean. They actually separate the cocoa powder from the cocoa butter, and it's much easier to make chocolate this way. So this is the cacao butter, cacao meaning raw, so it hasn't been overly heated, and it's going to maintain a lot of the nutrients. Now some people might substitute coconut oil instead of this because it's cheaper, it's just easier, but it doesn't taste as good. So try to use the cacao butter if you can. And then we have the cacao powder. Same thing, look for the cacao rather than the cocoa, so you'll know it'll be really high in those antioxidants. And what I do is I use my scale here to measure the ingredients by weight. Because this cacao butter is not melted down yet, it's very hard to just say it's going to be 2 cups. Although you could play around with it, it probably is about 2 cups. So I'm going to use 12 ounces by weight of the cacao butter and about 9 ounces of the cacao powder. And the first thing that we're going to do is melt this wonderful cacao butter in this kind of double boiler pan. This bowl is actually kind of special for making chocolate, and I have in this pan just some water that's on I brought it to a boil, but then I turned it down to low. And then I just very slowly melt that cacao butter. It's melted now. So I can go ahead and add my cacao powder. But before I do that, I am going to add a few other ingredients. For my sweetener, I'm going to use pure monk fruit and some raw honey. I'm going to use a combination of them, because pure monk fruit, I think it doesn't taste as good. I think if we have some actual glucose in there, it's going to be a lot tastier. So the raw honey and the monk fruit. I don't use the monk fruit that has erythritol, which is a sugar alcohol, because some people will have some digestive issues with sugar alcohols. So pure monk fruit. What I typically use is about, a 1/4 cup of honey, or maple syrup is another option. And then maybe a 1/4 teaspoon of this monk fruit. It's very potent. And then I'm also going to add some vanilla and maybe a 1/2 teaspoon. And then I'm going to sprinkle some sea salt in there, some Himalayan sea salt. And how much you put in there is going to be up to you. I like the taste of salted chocolate, but too much salt isn't great for us. So I'm just going to kind of sprinkle it over, do a few pinches of that. And then lastly, I will add my cacao powder, get that to mix in really well, and then we are going to use, I will come back to you when we fill these silicone molds. It's not a requirement to make your own chocolate, but they're really fun and easy. They pop right out after you refrigerate them, and pretty easy cleanup as well. Okay, so I will be right back. I am back. I'm going to kind of show you a few tricks here. So first of all, we are going to do the raw honey. Now, a great trick, I have my 1/4 cup here. I am going to dip it in this cocoa butter because it's very oily, and it's going to make the honey slip right out. So I'm going to pour it in here. And I'm actually going to do a little bit less than a 1/4 cup. Oh, that's pretty close to a 1/4 cup. I don't like my chocolate too sweet. But look at that pouring right out. This is great. Just slides right out and you don't have a mess. We are going to do about a 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla. I'm not going to get crazy with measuring this perfectly, because that's how I roll. 1/4 teaspoon of this monk fruit. It'll really cut down on how much honey you need to use. And the sea salt. I'm gonna do just a good pinch in there. And I'm gonna stir that up. If things aren't dissolving and mixing, you can turn your heat up a little bit, but I really like to keep as much of the antioxidants in this chocolate as possible. So, which is why we call it raw chocolate. We're cooking this at a low heat just to make sure everything melts. And the reason I use honey or maple syrup rather than like a coconut sugar is the lower temperatures really are going to have a hard time dissolving those sugars. And another thing I don't do is tempering. You may have heard about tempering chocolate. Makes it nice and creamy and gives it really a shiny gloss. It's really nice if you're making a beautiful cake and you want that chocolate to just gloss on top of that cake. But I don't think it's worth the trouble. Basically with tempering, you're going to, after you get all the ingredients in here, you're gonna cool it down and then you're gonna warm it up again, cool it down, warm it up, and keep stirring it. And that's called tempering. Okay, so I have that honey pretty much dissolved in here and the rest of the ingredients. So I will start to add this cocoa powder, and I'm gonna do a little bit at a time here, maybe 1/3 of it. And just work at it to get it kind of mixed in. Try to have patience with it. Be mindful with your cooking experience. Be present. It's oftentimes these things that take a little bit longer. This cocoa powder sometimes isn't easy to mix in gently, quickly. Add some more. So it gives you an opportunity to feel your feet on the floor, be present, be here, not thinking about your next task. All right, so when I get out this all mixed in, I will be right back. Hey friends, I am back, and our chocolate, as you can see, is looking delicious. Nice and thick because it is warm. It is still very pourable. And I've got my silicone molds here ready to fill. And I bought this because I love making this. This makes it a lot easier to pour into these little things. I just pull up on this to release it as I'm pouring. So let me just show you what that's like. Make sure you taste your chocolate before you start pouring. Make sure it's got enough sweetener for you, not too bitter. And I'm going to pull this up and start pouring. And don't burn yourself tasting it. Just put a few drops into your measuring cup, let it cool for a few seconds. And here we go. And one of my favorite things other than these molds is I will pour chocolate over walnuts. Walnuts are my favorite with chocolate. So I'll get a baking sheet, put parchment paper over it, just pour the walnuts on the parchment paper and just pour this chocolate over it really thick. And then pop it into the refrigerator, let it cool for probably a couple hours is plenty, and you're good to go. I also love to put some dried blueberries in these silicone molds and pour the chocolate over it. That is really special too. So I will finish this up and I will be back after these are chilled in the fridge, and we'll pop them out and show you what it looks like. Hey everyone, Linda Curry here, and I am back to show you my delicious chocolates. They've been in the refrigerator for an hour, maybe 2 at the most, and they just pop right out. And I'm gonna just pop all of these out and then store them in the refrigerator. I love these little heart-shaped silicone molds. One rule of thumb, if you get silicone molds with a lot of design in them, they're really pretty chocolates but harder to clean, so I would stick with simplicity. There's another silicone mold like this that has a little more firmness. You don't have to stick it on a pan when you transport it. And these just pop right out as well with very little cleanup. And then I wanted to show you my chocolate bark. I made a very small batch because I was running out of walnuts. Normally I make a huge sheet pan of it. But basically all you do is just crack it to whatever size pieces that you want. And again, store it in the refrigerator. In Arizona here, in the summertime, it gets really warm and it'll start melting on your hands like this very quickly. So that's why I store it in the refrigerator, but it's not absolutely necessary. And make a big batch so you don't have to make this but every few weeks or so, and enjoy it. Again, this chocolate, raw chocolate, is very high in antioxidants and stimulants, so there is a bit of caffeine in it. So I don't eat it at night. I try to eat my chocolate before noon actually, and that way I can ensure a restful night's sleep. And that's all I've got for now. I hope you will tune in again to see what else I'm cooking up in the kitchen. Take care.